Good morning. This is the Fat Health Teacher, and today's topic is bullying. I will also have a small, well, like two pictures of the progress that I'm making in my yard on that concrete pad. Okay, so before I get started, bullying is a form of abuse. So anything that I'm saying about bullying, as far as what a perpetrator does and how a victim may react, could also be true about any other type of abusive situation, whether it be domestic violence or it be something that's happening at the workplace, um, things along those lines. So please, again, keep in mind that bullying is a form of abuse. All right, this is exactly what I teach my students. In order for something to be considered bullying, three things have to happen. Okay? Number one, a specific person is being targeted. Number two, it's happening on multiple occasions. Okay? So it's not just I bumped into Worf while I was, walking down the hallway. This is I bumped into him and then I threw him into the lockers. And then while he was trying to pick up his books, I kicked him in the butt. Okay, any of those things. So we're looking at repeated events toward a specific person. Okay, and then finally, the last thing that has to be there is it has to be on purpose. Okay, so repeated, targeted, on purpose. Okay. Now, the final thing that really needs to be there that I also talk with my students about is that the person who is targeted, they have to actually believe that this is bullying. So if they don't see it as bullying, it's not bullying. Much like sexual harassment. Some of you have, if you're adults, you've gone through sexual harassment training on how not to do it, especially if it's in the workplace environment. If you are a student, you've probably heard some things. So things like whistling or complimenting somebody on their booty or staring at somebody's breasts or rating them, that kind of thing. In general, not so nice. Okay, it's kind of a rude thing to do, but not everybody is bothered by it. Okay, and so if you whistle at somebody and they're like, "Yeah, I know I'm rocking this," then that's going to be okay. But if you whistle at somebody and they kind of give you that look. You know the look that people give you in the movie theater when you're being too loud. If they give you that look, then you crossed a line. Okay? Because now this is unwanted attention. Now, often the bully is going to have some form of power. Power can be, it can be a lot of different things. It can be that they have physical power. They might be bigger than somebody, or they might be more athletic than somebody. It could be social power. They have a lot more friends. They're more popular. It could be economic power. They have the ability to bribe people. It could be that if we're talking about a school situation, it could be that they know that their parents are able to, talk to the principal to make things go away. Or it could be that they can sweet talk themselves into it. Now, remember, when bullying happens, it's typically not going to happen around the adults or any witnesses in general, because witnesses means that it's harder. Okay, so witnesses who can actually do something. A witness means that it would be harder to continue the behavior, right? So let's say you're at school and Troy and Riker are hanging out. Okay, and Troy decides to pick on Riker. Well, if there is an adult around, okay, a person with authority, then Troy's probably not going to do anything to Riker. But if that authority figure walks out of the cafeteria, then Troy may decide that it's appropriate to dump Riker's lunch, or that it's appropriate to throw her milk at him. Okay? Bullies don't want witnesses, abusers don't want witnesses. So, what do you do? Okay? If you are witnessing an abusive behavior, chances are you do not have the power to counteract the bully directly. All right? And I would encourage you not not to do what they do in the movies, right? Where the person's being bullied and then you step up and you stand up for them, or you beat up the bully or something along those lines, right? To teach the bully the lesson. Because that typically doesn't work. Um, if you beat up the bully, if you make fun of them, if you put them down, you're not teaching them what it's like to be bullied. You're teaching them that they just lost face. And now they're going to have to do something in order to retaliate. And if you aren't a person they can retaliate against because you're bigger, stronger, have friends, whatever, guess who they're going to go after? They're going to go after that person that they first went after, right? So in movies, you see like little brother's getting picked on, and older brother comes in and says, "Hey, you're not allowed to pick on my brother. Only I'm allowed to do that." As soon as the older brother's gone, guess what happens to the little brother? They start picking on him again. Okay? Now, that's not to say that you can't do anything, because there are plenty of things that you can do, and these are things that you can do without putting yourself at risk. Okay? The things that I talk to my students about are distract, support, and report. We're going to start out with report because it's the easiest one. It's exactly what it says it is. You are getting some authority figure involved. All right, whether it's the police, it's the principal, it's somebody's parents, whatever. You are getting them involved. Supporting, you can support in the moment. So if Zoe knocks Simon's books out of his hands, then maybe you help Simon pick up the books. Okay. Or Kaylee is going after Inara, right? And so after Kaylee has had her say, and you can see that Inara is very upset, you can go up to Inara and you can say something like, "Hey, do you want to come sit with me?" Or, "Hey, some friends and I were going to go out. Do you want to come along with us?" Or even something really simple. Just say, "Are you okay? Do you want to talk about it?" Just being there. Remember, I said that it's very important for people to be seen and to believe that they are being seen, right? We don't want people to think that they're having to deal with all of this stuff on their own. So the more you can let them know that you are aware of what's happening to them, the better it's going to be in the long run. Now, the final way that you can assist is you can distract. You can distract either the bully or the victim, okay? And you can be creative. You can be super creative with these. So some of the distraction methods that my students have come up with is, let's say that you are in the hall and Anakin and Zaphod are hanging out in the hall. Okay? And Anakin's been picking on Zaphod because, well, Anakin's Darth Vader. And so you see that it looks like Anakin actually wants things to get physical, and he's pushing, and he's really trying to encourage a fight, right? He's trying to see if he can get Zaphod to go after him, okay? So what you can do is you could do something like, so instead of being in a group that says, "Hey, fight, 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 fight," which you sometimes see, you can actually say, "Hey, Princess Padme, how you doing?" Princess Padme's got power, right? Anakin respects her. So what do you think is going to happen? They're not going to continue the fight because Anakin is either going to pretend that it was a joke and that they were just messing around, or Anakin's going to act like nothing happened and he's just going to walk away. Okay? Either way, you have successfully distracted the person, which is good. You can also do things like invite the person to go to a movie. Oh, you could talk to them. You could say, "Hey, we have that math class together. Do you think you could help me out with the homework? Because I'm having a hard time understanding number 5," or something along those lines, right? Just to get their mind off of what's happening. Because when you are the target of a bully, it can be very easy to think that you are alone. Okay, so when it comes to bullying, one of the reasons it's so important for bystanders to intervene, even if it's after the fact, is because people who are the victims of bullying will tend to do one of two things. Either they will externalize what's happening to them, which could look like a school shooting, or it could look like some or other sort of, violence event. It could just be that this person goes home and they lash out at their parents. So that would be externalizing, right? Because things are happening to them and they can't do anything about it. The other thing that I've seen with regards to bullying and how a victim would react is through internalizing. Now, internalizing is very dangerous to the person who's doing it. I would say, I'm not going to say that it's more dangerous than externalizing, considering that we're talking about like school shootings and stuff. But internalizing can be pretty bad because people who internalize, sometimes you may not even see what they're going to do. Like, you don't see it happening. They may put on a good face for you. They may be tired of telling you that they're having a rough time because they feel like you're tired of hearing about it. And when the person internalizes, instead of saying, wow, this person is really mean and why are they doing that, they are looking at themselves and they're saying, I deserve what's happening to me. It's my fault. I chose this. I'm not good enough. It's my fault because and then however you want to justify why you think that you deserve to be treated the way that you're being treated. Or they feel that they deserve to be treated. Okay? So yeah, two really dangerous things. With the internalizing, as far as what you might see as it's getting bad. So you may see depression, you may see withdrawal, you may see anxiety, you may see self-harm. Remember, self-harm is not necessarily an indicator of suicide or suicidal ideation. And then, of course, you may see suicide because the person just decides, I'm a terrible person, I can't survive, I just can't live anymore. Now, I talked about bullying being a form of abuse. The other thing to understand is that cyberbullying is one of the scarier forms of bullying. And this is just my opinion, but when I was in middle school, it was actually called junior high, it was only 7th and 8th graders, so we're not talking a whole lot of people. And there was bullying. I was bullied a lot. I was an awkward white kid on the Navajo reservation. Not everybody there at my school was Navajo, but the not Navajo kids tended to also be white. They were also children of teachers, but they seemed to have more money, and so I just didn't really fit in. They were all friends with each other, that kind of thing. So I don't think I've ever been this public about what's happened. So I was bullied. I was let me rewind a little bit so you have a little bit of background. When I was in 2nd grade, I apparently did very well on some tests of whatever sort, and so I got to skip. And I skipped straight into 4th grade. It was very smart. I did not hide how smart I was. I think I've talked about this before in one of my other videos. Anyway, so it put a giant target on me because, I was the awkward kid. If you've seen Saved by the Bell, I was a bit like Screech, except I didn't actually have friends. Or I was that Tori Spelling character where she had like the braces and the braids and whatever. But combine that awkwardness with also being very tall, and in fact much taller than most of the other students. So anyway, we get to junior high, which is 7th and 8th grade only, and the bullying only gets worse. It sucked. It sucked a lot. I actually voluntarily chose to spray down dishes so that I didn't have to sit with people at lunch because people didn't want to sit with me, right? I remember sitting down, and I know I shared this one before. I sat down, and this kid, put his foot against me and tried to push me off the table, right? At one point, I had my shirt pulled down, and, I had started puberty, but it wasn't really enough to actually require underwear. So when she pulled it down, I was completely exposed, and it was embarrassing. Fortunately, I think there was only a teacher in the room, and I'm not even sure he was paying attention, which is probably a good thing. Yeah, it was just unpleasant, and no one reached out to me. Not one person. At least not one student. There were teachers who reached out to me, but not one student did. There wasn't a single person who said, hey, maybe she doesn't deserve this. Or, why don't we try being nice to her? Or, let's find out what she's into. Not one person. So I would challenge you to be the one person. Now, here's where I was going with cyberbullying. So I had all this crap happening at school, right? But then when I went home, it was over. right? Nobody's going to call me in order to continue bullying me. They were going to put up bulletin boards or anything like that in order to make fun of me. That was too much work. But with society the way it is now, with the electronics that we have now, people do that stuff. Just a couple of years ago, one of our sixth graders got targeted. And somebody created a Facebook page that said, "We hate," and then they put this person's name. It was insane. And people were posting on it. There were people who would post pictures, right? So they'd have, picture one of somebody, picture two of a different person, and they'd say, rate them. Who's prettier? Who's uglier? Who's fill in the blank? Okay? This is stuff that gets to you even when you're at home. So where when I was a kid, I could go home and I could read a book and I could forget about the crap that was happening to me until I had to go to school the next day. The kids now, if they are in any way connected, all right, and even if they're not connected, people will put stuff online, and people will send text messages, and people will take unflattering photos, and it's awful because then they see that, and they realize that they can't get away from it. Like, it doesn't matter where they go, they cannot get away from it because people are just going to keep going, right? If I get mad at somebody, I can post on their Facebook, I can post on their friends' Facebook pages, I can do some video, I can do whatever. If you are interested in seeing what this might look like if you're not sure, there's a video on Netflix, it's called Cyberbullying. There's also a short video on YouTube that I really like that is actually about a world where heterosexuality and homosexuality is swapped. So the norm is homosexuality, and heterosexuality is the thing that causes you to be abused. And it's a pretty powerful video, so I would recommend that you watch it. I may pop up the title here so that you can find it. Anyway, yeah, don't let these people be invisible. Let them know that they're not alone. Let them know that you see them, and let them know that you're willing to help, even if it's only a little bit. All right? Now, there are situations where it would actually be more dangerous to intervene. All right? Let me give you an example. My father, my brother, and I were in a car at the airport. We were in a parking lot, and right next door to us, in another car, there was a man and a woman, and it seemed that they were having a domestic altercation. Okay? Initially, it looked like the man was the aggressor, but then the woman started hitting him. And when I mentioned this to my brother and to my father, they both said, "Don't get involved, it's none of your business." This is a dangerous thought process. This is incredibly dangerous. Because if people keep choosing not to get involved, then things are only going to escalate. All right? I am going to tell you a story, and I will see if I can find a link for you so you can actually read it from one of the sources. In the 1970s, in New York City, a woman was going home. It was late at night. She must have been working the night shift or something along those lines. And on her way home, she was attacked. She wasn't very far from her apartment, but she was attacked. She made a lot of noise. There was a big scuffle, and lights started coming on in the apartment buildings that were near where she was standing. The attacker saw this and ran away. She was hurt, but she could still move, so she continued on her way to her apartment. There was no doorman, and this is in a time before cell phones. All right, I know it's hard to believe that cell phones didn't ever exist, or that there was a time where they didn't exist, but this was one of those situations. So for some people, you didn't even have a phone that went directly to you. Sometimes there was a phone in the hallway that was shared among all the residents on that floor. Okay. So anyway, she continues on her way home. She gets attacked again. Same guy. Lights come on. Guy runs away. She continues. And as she's walking, the lights start going off because people have peeked out. They've seen what's happening, and it doesn't seem like there's anything else to see, so they go back to bed. She gets to the front door of her apartment, and she's either using a key or she's trying to do a keypad. She's doing something to try to get in. And she is attacked a final time, third and final time. This time she's killed. All right. Now, I don't know how long it was between when she was killed and when she was discovered. I don't imagine it was a super long time. But one of the reasons that this became such an important case was because the police interviewed people in the area. And when they interviewed the people, they discovered that more than 30 people knew what was going on. So as I said, the police interviewed people in the neighborhood, in the apartment building, some of them in the same apartment building as her. There were more than 30 witnesses. They were all able to describe what happened, that this woman had been attacked. And when the officers said, well, why didn't you call the police? There were a variety of responses. So usually when I get to this point in the story, I ask my students, why did they not respond? Or why did these people not call the police? And some of the more common ones are they didn't want to get involved. They were afraid of retaliation. These are both legitimate. But the overwhelming response by the actual witnesses was that they thought somebody else had called. Okay? So you have 30 people. They're all peeking out their window. They're all looking at what's going on. And they all believe that somebody else has called the police so they don't need to. This still happens. This is why when people go through CPR training or first aid training, they tell you don't yell out, somebody call the police, because no one's going to call, because everybody thinks that somebody else is calling. This is why they say point to someone and specifically tell them to call the police, or specifically tell them to go get help. Okay? You don't just rely on somebody please do it, because somebody isn't a person. All right? Don't be afraid to get involved. You can do it without getting hurt. If you think that whatever is going on is severe enough, you can call the police. It is possible for you to report things anonymously. If you are in the Albuquerque area, you can call and report things using the 242 COPS number. That area code's 505. And of course, you can call 911. All right. The police will listen to you. They'll take you seriously. Yeah. So the goal here is to empower you so that you know what things look like. Don't be a bully. Don't be a jerk. Be nice to each other. Okay? Alright, so for the last couple of minutes, I wanted to say that I'm super excited that I actually have more than 2/3, I think, 2/3 of the concrete pad taken out. I've got a video, or not a video, I've got a couple of pictures from progress earlier this morning before I actually stopped. There was one of the reasons I'm pulling the pad out is because there's a crack in it, and so anytime it rained, like there was like this puddle that would form, and it would take forever for it to go away, even if you tried to sweep the water off, because it wasn't level. And so the crack actually went the entire width of the pad, or length of the pad, depending on how you're looking at it. And so I have removed everything to the south of that crack, which is awesome, because that means I'm that much closer to getting the whole pad out. Once that pad comes out and I take care of the concrete by redistributing it to other places, I'm going to be putting up my pool. And I'm hoping I get to do this before I go to my sister's wedding, because then it'll have like a weekend to heat up, because I know that water coming out of the faucet is going to be really cold. Anyway, that's it. This is the Fat Health Teacher signing out. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please feel free to drop me a line. If you like what you're hearing, subscribe, share. It's a good thing to do.